She found a note nailed to the door telling her to flee immediately, but she was so desperate that she decided to ignore the warning, only to discover that the abandoned homestead harbored someone alive whom everyone believed to be dead. Can you imagine arriving at a place where nobody wants to live, reading a terrifying warning to leave, and still having to stay because you have absolutely nowhere else in the world to go? But this story happened in the backwoods of West Virginia in December 1921. Loretta Vance never imagined life could crumble so quickly. 2 months ago, she still had a husband, a home, a routine. She woke up early, made coffee, took care of the children, washed clothes in the basin out back. Life was simple, but it had shape, it had structure. Now, sitting on the wooden bench of that old buckboard wagon that rattled over every pothole in the dirt road, with her 4-year-old daughter sleeping on her lap and her 9-year-old son clinging to her skirt, Loretta felt like she was falling into a bottomless abyss. Her husband, Jackson Vance, had died of typhoid fever in early October. It was quick, brutal, a week of high fever, delirium, convulsions. The town doctor said there was nothing to be done. Jackson died on a Tuesday morning holding her hand, apologizing for leaving her alone. Loretta could still hear his voice, weak and broken. "Forgive me, Laurie. Forgive me for leaving you with nothing." She had held on tight, promised everything would be fine, lied so he could die in peace. I'd really love to know where you are watching this from right now. Leave your city and state in the comments below. It really motivates me to keep bringing these stories to you, and if you're enjoying this, don't forget to leave a like, because it helps the channel grow and reach more people who love these old-time tales. The trouble came after the funeral. Loretta's father-in-law, Clayton Vance, a man as hard as a millstone, had never liked her. He thought his son had married poorly, that Loretta was a weak woman, too delicate, useless for the hard life of the country. Jackson worked as a carpenter at his father's sawmill, and they lived in a tiny cottage on the back of the family property. 3 days after the funeral, Clayton knocked on the door. He didn't come in. He stood in the doorway, hat in hand, eyes hard. "You have a week to get out," he said without preamble. "I'm going to need the house for the new carpenter I'm hiring." Loretta felt the ground give way. "But Clayton, I have nowhere to go," she begged. "I have 2 children." The father-in-law didn't blink. "That's not my problem," he replied. "Jackson was my son, but he's dead. You are no longer my responsibility. You have kin, go find them." And he turned his back before she could respond. Loretta did have kin. An aunt in Charleston, 2 distant cousins in Wheeling. She wrote letters to all of them asking for help. Anything, a corner to stay in until she got back on her feet. The aunt replied saying her house was small, barely fitting her and her sick husband. The cousins didn't even reply. 6 days passed. Loretta gathered the savings she had kept in a biscuit tin under the bed. $75. That was it. The money left over from Jackson's burial, a few coins she saved selling preserves, her husband's last wages. With that, she couldn't rent a house in town, let alone buy land. It was Mr. Abernathy, the owner of the general store in Stony Creek, who mentioned the farm. Loretta had gone there to buy flour and beans, trying to stretch her money. Abernathy was a man in his 60s, paunchy, with a raspy voice from smoking a pipe since boyhood. He knew everyone, knew everything happening in the hollows. When Loretta mentioned in a low, ashamed voice that she was looking for a cheap place to live, he scratched his grey beard and furrowed his brow. "Cheap or dirt cheap?" he asked. Loretta swallowed hard. "Dirt cheap. I have $75. Abernathy let out a low whistle. "With that, you can't even rent a pigsty, Mrs. Vance. But thinking on it, there is a place, a homestead down by the river, past the ridge, 50 acres, been abandoned for 6 years. The deed is at the clerk's office waiting for a buyer. They're asking $100, but I bet they'll take less. Nobody wants it." Loretta felt a thread of hope. Why does nobody want it?" Abernathy looked away. "It has stories, ma'am. Folks say the place is haunted. The old owner, a German fellow named Hermann Schultz, lived there with his wife and 3 sons. In 1915, the house caught fire in the middle of the night. They all died, burned alive. Folks say Hermann went mad, that he started the fire, that you can hear screams at night. Hogwash, I reckon, but people believe it. That's why it's cheap." Loretta took a deep breath. Ghost screams wouldn't kill her children. Lack of shelter and food would. "I want to see it," she said firmly. Abernathy blinked, surprised. "You've got grit, I'll give you that. Tomorrow morning I'll swing by with the wagon, take you out there, but don't say I didn't warn you." The trip to the farm took almost 3 hours. The road was bad, full of rocks, winding deep down into the valley. The dense woods swallowed the sides of the path. Towering pines, giant ferns, hanging vines. The sound of the forest was heavy, filled with crickets, birds, water running somewhere invisible. David, her 9-year-old son, looked at everything with wide eyes, half fascinated, half scared. Clara slept in her mother's lap, blonde hair stuck to her sweaty forehead. Abernathy drove in silence, guiding the 2 old horses pulling the wagon. Occasionally he pointed something out. "Over there is the border with Colonel Barrett's estate. That creek comes down from the mountain, good water. Further up there's a log bridge. Careful, it's a bit rotten." When they finally arrived, Loretta felt her stomach knot. The homestead was bigger than she imagined. The main house was still standing, but the scars of the fire were visible. Blackened walls, partially collapsed roof, glassless windows. Around it, tall weeds had taken over everything. What must have been an orchard was now a thicket. A corral of rotting wood leaned to the side. Further back, a smaller building could be seen, square, with the roof still intact. "That there is the tobacco barn," Abernathy explained. "Hermann grew tobacco, sold well. He was a hard-working man. Shame about his end." He stepped down from the wagon, helped Loretta down. "I'll let you look around. Holler if you need me. I'm going to see if there's water in the well." Loretta held Clara by the hand and called David close. They walked slowly to the house. The silence was heavy, interrupted only by the wind in the trees and the distant call of a mockingbird. The front door was locked, but the side door was open, hanging on rusted hinges. Loretta pushed it. The wood groaned. Inside it smelled of mold, old ash, abandonment. The floor was wide planks, many scorched, others loose. There were remnants of furniture. An overturned table, broken chairs, an iron stove still standing in a corner. Cobwebs covered the corners. David grabbed his mother's skirt. "I don't like it here, Mama." Loretta stroked the boy's hair. "It'll be fine, son. We'll clean it, fix it up. You'll see how good it'll be." But she wasn't convinced herself. That was when she saw the back door. It was closed, but there was something nailed to it. Loretta approached. It was a piece of thick, yellowed paper, nailed with a rusted tack. The writing was hurried, done in pencil, large, shaky letters. She read it once, read it again. Her heart started beating faster. "If you are reading this, run. Do not ask questions. Just leave while you can. Your life depends on it." There was no signature, no date. But the pencil lead was still dark, not totally faded. That wasn't 6 years old. It was recent. Very recent. Loretta ripped the paper from the door with a trembling hand, turned it over. Who had written it? When? Why? David looked at her with fear in his eyes. "What is it, Mama?" Loretta folded the paper and shoved it into her dress pocket. "Nothing, my boy, just an old note." But inside, terror began to crawl up her spine. Someone had been there. Someone wrote that. Someone wanted whoever arrived to leave immediately. Abernathy returned a few minutes later. "Found the well?" asked Loretta, trying to keep her voice steady. "Found it. It's working. Clean water. There's chopped firewood near the shed too, which is odd. Should have all been rotted by now." Loretta felt a chill. "Chopped firewood?" Abernathy nodded. Yeah, found it strange too, but maybe someone passed through, chopped some to use and left it. It happens. He looked at her. So, Mrs. Vance, do you want it? Loretta looked around, looked at the wrecked house, the weeds, the grey December sky threatening rain, looked at her children. David terrified, Clara hungry, tired, thought of the note in her pocket, thought of her cruel father-in-law, thought of the $75 that were everything she had in the world. I want it, she said. Let's go to the clerk. The deed was done that same day. The clerk, Mr. Percival Blackwood, a thin man with round spectacles, accepted $60 for the property. Loretta signed with a steady hand. When she left the office with the stamped and registered document, she felt a double weight. Relief at having a roof. Terror of what might be waiting there. Abernathy helped haul the few things she had. 2 trunks of clothes, pans, blankets, the accordion that had belonged to her father. When the sun began to set, he said goodbye at the gate. You're brave, Mrs. Vance. Courage or desperation, hard to tell. If you need anything, town is 3 hours from here. Anything at all. And he left, kicking up dust on the road. The first night was the worst of Loretta's life. They slept in the parlor, on the floor, on spread-out blankets. She had cleaned as much as she could before dark, swept ashes, cleared cobwebs, blocked the door with a wedged plank. She lit a kerosene lantern she had brought. The weak light danced on the scorched walls. Clara cried from hunger. Loretta gave her the last piece of bread she had, soaked in warm milk. David stayed quiet, eyes fixed on the ceiling. "Mama, is there anyone here besides us?" he asked suddenly. Loretta froze. "Why do you ask that?" The boy swallowed hard. "I heard footsteps outside." Loretta strained her ears. Wind in the trees, crickets, nothing else. "It's critters from the woods, son, fox, possum. Go to sleep." But she didn't sleep. She stayed awake the entire night, eyes on the door, clutching a kitchen knife, listening to every sound, every creak, every sigh of the old house. When the sun rose, red through the morning mist, Loretta got up aching and went to the well to fetch water. That was when she saw it. The firewood Abernathy had mentioned was stacked neatly near the shed. But there was something else. Footprints, fresh footprints in the damp earth. Men's footprints, large, barefoot. They led from the shed to the woods, disappearing among the ferns. Loretta dropped the bucket, ran back to the house, bolted the door, pulled the children close. Someone was there. Someone alive. And that someone had written the note. The next 3 days were of rising tension. Loretta tried to keep a routine, cleaned the house, cooked the little she had, tended to the children. But the signs continued. On the second night, she put out the lantern before sleeping. In the middle of the night, she woke up and saw a faint light coming from outside. She ran to the window. The lantern she had left in the shed, unlit, was burning. Someone had lit it. Loretta stood paralyzed, heart hammering. She watched until the light went out on its own, 15 minutes later. On the third day, she found food missing. She had left a pot of beans on low fire and went to fetch water. When she returned, beans were missing. Not much. 2 ladles, maybe. But missing. David swore he hadn't eaten it. Clara was sleeping. Loretta sat in the chair, shaking. "Who is here?" she screamed into the void. "Who are you?" Silence. Only the wind. But she knew someone was watching. Someone was close. Someone was hungry enough to steal food. And that someone wanted her to leave. On the 4th night, Loretta made a decision. She wasn't running. She had nowhere to go. If there was someone there, she was going to find out who. She was going to face them. She waited for the children to sleep, grabbed the lantern, lit it, and stepped out of the house. The night air was cold, damp. A fine mist rose from the river. She walked slowly to the shed. The door was ajar. Loretta pushed it. Inside, the smell of earth, old tools, mold. In the back, there was a wooden ladder going down. She had never seen that before. She descended step by step, lantern raised. Below, a root cellar, small, damp. And in the corner, huddled against the wall, covered in dirty rags, was a man. He was young, maybe in his early 20s, but looked older. Too thin, bearded, matted long hair, sunken eyes shining in the lantern light like a cornered animal. When he saw Loretta, he shrank back even further, raised trembling hands. "Please, don't scream," he whispered in accented English, heavy and thick. "Please, I'll go. Just don't scream." Loretta was frozen. "Who are you?" she managed to ask, voice hoarse. The man swallowed hard. "My name is Klaus," he said. "Klaus Schultz. I lived here, and everyone thinks I burned to death with my family 6 years ago." Loretta stood at the entrance of the cellar, holding the lantern with a hand that shook so much the light danced on the damp walls. The man, huddled in the corner, repeated the name as if it were a password for survival. "Klaus Schultz," he said again, voice broken. "Son of Hermann Schultz. I didn't die in the fire. I survived, and I've been hiding here ever since." She should have screamed, run, grabbed the children and fled into the darkness, but something in his voice, in the absolute despair of those sunken eyes, held her in place. Loretta took the last step down slowly. Klaus shrank back even more, as if expecting a blow. "I won't scream," she said finally, "but you're going to explain everything, now." Klaus nodded with quick head movements, dirty hair falling over his face, ran a trembling hand through his matted beard. "I wrote the note," he began. "I wrote several. Whenever someone tried to buy the farm, I nailed a note to the door, to protect, so nobody would get involved." Loretta sat on the wooden step, lantern beside her. "Involved with what?" Klaus took a deep breath, like someone about to dive into very deep water. "My father didn't go mad," he said. "He didn't set fire to the house. It was them, the men from the syndicate." Loretta felt a shiver go up her spine. "What syndicate?" Klaus closed his eyes. "The Blackwater Valley Timber Syndicate. My father had this land, 50 good acres, flat, near the river. They wanted to buy it to build a big sawmill. My father didn't want to sell. Said this land was a legacy for his sons, that he had sweated blood to get it. They offered money, a lot of money. My father refused. Then the threats started." He opened his eyes, and Loretta saw ancient pain there, a wound that had never closed. "My father was German," Klaus continued, "came to America in 1898 with my mother, Greta. I was 6. My brothers were born here, Wilhelm, Johann. My father didn't understand American laws well, didn't speak English perfectly. The syndicate men knew that, used that, said his deed was worth nothing, that an immigrant couldn't own land, that they would take it anyway. My father found a lawyer. The lawyer disappeared, went to the sheriff. The sheriff said he couldn't do anything, everything bought, everything controlled by them." Loretta swallowed hard. "And the fire?" Klaus clenched his fists, dirty fingernails digging into his palms. "It was in June of 1915, new moon night, pitch black. I was 22. I was in the barn tending to a cow about to calf. Heard the sound of horses, looked through the crack. It was 6 men in hoods. They surrounded the house, doused the walls in kerosene. My father ran out, screaming. They held him, beat him. My mother screamed inside, tried to get out with my brothers. The door was locked from the outside. I heard the screams, heard my mother begging for her children, heard Wilhelm crying. He was 12, Johann was 9. Klaus's voice broke. He covered his face with his hands. Loretta felt tears burning her eyes. "And you?" she asked softly. Klaus took his hands off his face slowly. "I froze in the barn, with fear, a coward. I watched my father get beaten until he stopped moving, saw them throw his body back into the burning house, heard everything burn, everything. When the men left, I ran there, but it was too late. The house was a torch. Couldn't get in, couldn't save anyone. So I ran into the woods. Stayed hidden for 3 days without eating, without sleeping, listening to them look for me. When they found the bodies, they counted 4, thought I had died too. I let them think it. Loretta wiped her tears with the back of her hand. Why didn't you go to the police, to justice? Klaus let out a bitter laugh, devoid of humor. What police? The sheriff worked for them. The judge too, the clerk, everyone. I was a German, son of an immigrant, no money, no power. Just as the war was starting in Europe, who would believe me? They'd kill me too. So I stayed here, built this hideout, lived here for 6 years. Only go out at night, hunt, fish, plant a few things hidden in the woods. When someone tries to buy the farm, I write a note. Protect them, because if someone lives here and discovers I'm alive, they'll come back and kill again. Loretta stood in silence, processing. The story was absurd, impossible, but the pain on Klaus's face was too real to be a lie. And do you have proof? She asked. Something that proves it was murder. Klaus looked at her, hesitant. I do, he whispered. Kept it all. Hidden. But what good is proof without a living witness? Without someone who believes? Loretta stood up slowly, picked up the lantern. I'm going back to the house now, she said. My children are alone. But tomorrow morning you come up there. You're going to take a bath, cut that beard, eat real food, and you're going to show me that proof. Klaus widened his eyes. You aren't leaving? Aren't running away? Loretta shook her head. I have nowhere to run to, and neither do you. So let's stop running and start fighting. She climbed the stairs without looking back, crossed the shed, crossed the yard, entered the house. David and Clara slept peacefully. Loretta bolted the door, lay down beside them, but couldn't sleep. Stared at the ceiling, thinking of the family burned alive, thinking of the young man hidden for 6 years like an animal, thinking of the powerful men who did that and remained free, rich, respected. The sun rose red over the ridge. Loretta woke the children, made thin porridge with leftover cornmeal. As they ate, she heard footsteps outside. Klaus was standing at the door, hesitant. In the daylight he looked even more ragged, thin, dirty, clothes in tatters. But he had good height, broad shoulders, must have been a strong man before fear consumed him. Come in, Loretta said. Klaus entered like a ghost, looking at everything with wide eyes, as if he hadn't seen the inside of a house in years, which was exactly the case. David looked at him with curiosity mixed with fear. Who is he, Mama? A friend, Loretta answered. He's going to stay a few days. You're going to help me take care of him. David nodded seriously. Clara, too small to understand, just held out her hand, offering a piece of bread. Klaus looked at the outstretched hand, and for the first time, Loretta saw something other than fear in his eyes. She saw humanity returning. She heated water, gave him soap, scissors, her husband's old razor. Klaus cut his hair and beard alone outside, near the well. When he came back, he looked like a different person. Young, handsome even, despite the thinness. Clear blue eyes, blonde hair cut close, angular face. He sat at the table, and Loretta served beans with cornmeal. Klaus ate slowly, as if he had forgotten the taste of seasoned food. Thank you, he said when he finished. Heavy German accent, but understandable English. Been a long time since I ate like this. Now show me the proof, said Loretta. Klaus nodded, stood up, signaled for her to follow. They went to the destroyed tobacco barn in the back. He moved fallen planks aside, revealed a trapdoor disguised in the floor. Below, wrapped in waxed canvas, was a metal box. Klaus opened it carefully. Inside, yellow documents, letters, a notebook. My father noted everything here, explained Klaus, picking up the notebook. Every threat, every visit, names, dates, everything. And these letters are signed purchase offers. This one here, look, is from Sebastian Falk, head of the syndicate, offering $2,000. My father wrote on the back, refusing. 3 weeks later, we were attacked. Loretta took the letter. The signature was large, arrogant. Sebastian Falk, Blackwater Valley Timber Syndicate. She rifled through the documents. There was more. Strange payment receipts, records of falsified deeds, a list of names, properties, values. This here is gold, she murmured. Proof of land theft, forgery, corruption. Klaus nodded. My father suspected we weren't the only ones. That other immigrant families had been robbed. He was gathering proof to go to Charleston, speak directly to the governor, but there wasn't time. Loretta closed the box slowly. We need to take this to someone who isn't bought. Klaus shook his head violently. No, it's dangerous. They find out. They kill you and your children. Loretta looked into his eyes. And we stay like this forever? You hiding me afraid? Them free? Klaus looked away. I don't know what to do, he admitted. Spent 6 years thinking and I don't know. At that moment they heard the sound of horses on the road. Klaus went white. Hide the box, Loretta ordered. Fast. He obeyed, closed the trapdoor, covered it with planks. Loretta ran to the front of the house. It was 2 men on horseback. One of them was Tobias, a neighbor who lived 5 miles away. The other was a stranger. Tall, well-dressed, well-groomed grey mustache, expensive felt hat. Morning, Mrs. Vance, greeted Tobias. Brought Mr. Gus Layton. He wants to speak with you. If you are enjoying this story, leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any episodes. Gus Layton dismounted with elegance. Good morning, ma'am. Sorry to bother. I represent the Blackwater Valley Timber Syndicate. Came to make a proposal. Loretta felt her blood run cold, but kept her face neutral. Proposal? Layton smiled, too polite. Yes, we heard you bought this farm. We want to buy it back. We'll pay double what you spent, $120, cash, today. You make a profit and get free of this place. Everyone knows it's cursed. Loretta crossed her arms. I'm not interested in selling. Just bought it. I'm staying. Layton lost a bit of the smile. You don't understand, Mom. This place isn't safe. You have small children. Don't want to expose them to danger, do you? Loretta took a step forward. What kind of danger? Layton adjusted his hat. Dangers of life in the woods. Critters. Bad folks. Accidents. You're a widow, alone. Would be a shame if something happened. Tobias, who had stayed quiet, cleared his throat uncomfortably. Mrs. Vance, I think best you accept. The syndicate don't usually make an offer twice. Loretta looked at him, then at Layton. I'm not selling. This is my home now. You can leave. Layton stood still for a few seconds. The mood shifted. The smile vanished. Then he nodded slowly. As you wish, ma'am, but you'll regret it. He mounted his horse and left without another word. Tobias stayed a moment. Sorry, Mrs. Vance. I tried to warn you it wasn't a good idea living here. And he rode off too. Klaus came out of hiding, pale. They know, he said. Know there's someone here. That's why they came so fast. Loretta shook her head. Came because they always buy the abandoned farms around here. It's business. But now they'll be watching. Klaus ran a hand through his cut hair. I should go. Disappear for good. You stay in peace. Loretta grabbed him by the arm. You aren't going anywhere. We're fixing this. Together. In the following days, Loretta devised a plan. They needed someone powerful, honest, from outside the region. She remembered something Jackson had mentioned months before dying. Spoke of a lawyer in Charleston who defended workers against abusive bosses. A difficult name. Elias something. She wrote a letter explaining the situation without giving many details, asking for help, sent it by mail through Abernathy, who stopped by the farm to see if she needed supplies. While they waited for an answer, life on the farm took on a strange routine. Klaus helped with the heavy work, fixed the roof, cleared the brush, repaired the corral, worked in silence, strength returning to the body that had spent years hidden. David began to like him. Klaus taught the boy to set traps, fish, recognize animal tracks. Clara laughed when Klaus carved little wooden animals for her. At night, after the children slept, Loretta and Klaus talked. He told of life before, how happy he had been, united family, plans for the future, how everything had ended in one night. She told of her own life, of the husband she had loved, the pain of widowhood, the cruelty of her father-in-law. Little by little, between shared pain, something like friendship was born. Maybe more than that, but neither of them had the courage to name it. 2 weeks later, the answer arrived. Letter from Charleston, letterhead paper. Elias Thorne, attorney at law. Loretta read with a racing heart. The lawyer said cases of immigrant land theft were common, that he had faced syndicates before, that he would come personally to see the proof if she confirmed it was solid, that he had contacts in the state government and the Attorney General's office. Loretta showed the letter to Klaus. He read it, reread it, had hope in his eyes, but also fear. What if it's a trap? What if he works for them? Loretta took a deep breath. We need to trust someone. Can't fight alone. She replied, confirming. They set a meeting for the following month, March of 1922, right there at the farm. Thorne would come with a notary to record an official deposition. Klaus got more nervous as the date approached. 6 years hidden had turned the brave youth into a man haunted by ghosts. Loretta tried to give him strength. You're not a coward, she said. You survived. Now you're going to get justice for your family. But 3 days before the scheduled date, the threat became real. Loretta woke up to the smell of smoke, ran to the window. The barn was in flames. Small fire, controlled, but the message was clear. Klaus ran with buckets of water, managed to put it out before it spread. When the sun rose, they found a note nailed to the tree near the house. Same handwriting as the note Loretta had found on the door, but different message. Leave, or next time it's the house, with the kids inside. Loretta read it and felt fury grow where there should have been fear. Klaus was desperate. See, they know. They're going to kill everyone. You need to take the boys and leave. I'll vanish into the woods. Loretta crumpled the paper. No, now I'm sure that you were right, sure that they are murderers, and sure that we're going to bring them down. She sent a new message to Thorne, urgent, asking him to come sooner. He replied he'd be there in 2 days. In those 48 hours, Loretta didn't sleep right. Klaus stood guard at night, knife in hand, listening to every sound. David noticed the tension. Mama, are we in danger? Loretta knelt in front of her son. We are, baby. But we're gonna win, because we have something they don't. What, Mama? The truth. Attorney Elias Thorne arrived on a rainy afternoon in March riding a bay horse, accompanied by a young, thin clerk. He was a black man of imposing bearing, intelligent eyes, steady voice. Loretta received him in the clean parlor. Klaus was hiding in the bedroom. Thorne sat, listened to her tell the summarized story. When she finished, he stayed silent, thinking, then called for Klaus. The young man came out trembling. Thorne looked at him with kindness. Son, you're going to tell me everything, from the beginning, every detail. Don't be afraid. I've faced folks much worse than these timbermen. Klaus told it. It took 2 hours. The clerk wrote everything down. Thorne asked questions, checked dates, names. When Klaus showed the proof, the documents, his father's notebook, Thorne let out a low whistle. This here is dynamite, he said. Proof of a deed forgery scheme involving at least 15 properties, systematic theft, murder. With this, I can get an arrest warrant straight from a federal judge. These men are going down." But he got serious. "They're also going to try to stop it. You are in real danger." Loretta raised her chin. "We know." Thorne nodded. "I'm taking copies of these documents today. I'm going straight to Charleston, filing with the Attorney General tomorrow morning. In 3 days, I'll have warrants. But until then, stay hidden. Don't go out, don't light fires at night, don't draw attention." He left before dusk, carrying the documents in a leather satchel. Loretta and Klaus watched him disappear down the road. "It's gonna work," she said. "It will," agreed Klaus. But for the first time in 6 years, he seemed to actually believe it. That night, they ate together. Simple beans, cornbread, a piece of jerky Abernathy had brought. The children went to sleep early. Loretta and Klaus sat at the table, weak candlelight between them. "If we survive this," Klaus began, voice low, "I wanted to rebuild. The house, life, plant again." Loretta looked at him. "And what are you going to plant?" Klaus smiled for the first time, a sad but true smile. "Hope, maybe." She reached her hand across the table. He held it. Calloused hands, marked by suffering, but warm, alive. "We will survive," said Loretta. "And we'll rebuild together." Klaus squeezed her hand and nodded. Together. But outside, hidden in the woods, a man watched the house, saw the candlelight, saw the shadows in the window, and rode back, galloping into the darkness, to tell the boss that the widow and the dead German were entirely too alive for their own good. The next morning dawned with dense fog covering the whole valley. Loretta woke with a bad feeling in her stomach, that kind of tightness the body feels before the mind understands danger. Klaus was already awake, sitting near the window, watching the road through the mist. He hadn't slept. She saw it in his eyes, in the tension of his shoulders, in the way he gripped the hunting knife he had found in the shed. "They come today," said Klaus without taking his eyes off the window. "I know they come. It's been 6 years and I learned to feel when they're close." Loretta sat beside him. "Thorne said 3 days. Today is only the 2nd. Klaus shook his head. "They won't wait. Someone saw the lawyer leaving here yesterday. Someone told. They know time has run out. They'll act before the warrants arrive." David woke up with the conversation, came to his mother. Loretta pulled the boy into her lap. "It's going to be okay, my love. It's just going to be a hard day. I need you to be strong and take care of your sister." David looked at Klaus, then at his mother, and nodded, serious beyond his years. "I'll take care of her, Mama. You can trust me." Clara still slept, wrapped in the blanket, oblivious to the danger hovering over them all like the fog outside. Loretta made weak coffee, the last handful she had. They drank in silence. Klaus barely touched the food. He was different today. He wasn't the scared man from the cellar anymore. There was something in his eyes, decision maybe, or despair turned into courage. "If they come," he said suddenly, "you take the boys and run to the woods. There's a trail behind the barn that leads to the river. Cross the log bridge and follow the bank until you find Mr. Bennett's house. He's good folks, he'll help." Loretta stared at him. "And you?" Klaus gripped the knife handle. "I stay. Already ran once. Not running again." She held his arm. "Nobody runs. And nobody dies. We hold out until Thorne gets back." Klaus was about to answer when they heard it. Sound of horses, several, coming down the road. He ran to the window. Loretta felt her heart race. "How many?" she asked. Klaus counted. 6, all armed, and the one in front is Sebastian Falk. I recognize him even after 6 years. It was him who gave the order to burn my family. Loretta grabbed David and Clara, who had woken up scared. "You two go to the back room. Get under the bed and don't come out for anything. Don't make a noise. David, you cover your sister's mouth if she tries to cry. Understand?" David nodded, eyes wide, took his little sister by the hand and ran. Loretta waited to hear the door close, then returned to Klaus. He was standing in the middle of the room, knife in hand, body tense as a bowstring. She picked up the old shotgun she had found in the shed. It was rusted, probably didn't even work, but served for show. The horses stopped in front of the house. Loretta heard voices, heavy boots dismounting, someone giving orders. Then loud banging on the door. "Open up, Mrs. Vance," called a thick, authoritative voice. "We just want to talk. It's Sebastian Falk, came to make a final offer." Loretta looked at Klaus. He nodded. She opened the door but stayed in the frame, shotgun across her chest. "I have nothing to talk about with you, sir," she said firmly. Sebastian Falk was a big, stocky man, red face of someone who drank too much, eyes small and hard. Wore expensive clothes, imported felt hat, leather boots with silver spurs. Behind him, 5 men, hired guns, folks with the look of those who killed for money and slept well after. Falk smiled, but there was no warmth in that smile. "You're being stubborn, Mrs. Vance. That's not good. Lone woman with 2 kids can't afford to be stubborn." Loretta raised her chin. "I ain't alone." "And I ain't selling. You can leave." Falk took a step forward. Loretta raised the shotgun. He stopped, raised hands in a fake gesture of peace. "Easy, easy. Didn't come here for violence. Came for business. $300. Last offer. You take this money, disappear from here, raise your kids in peace. Nobody gets hurt." Loretta felt sweat running down her back. "I don't want your dirty money. I want you off my land, now." Falk's smile died. "Your land." This land was never yours. It was stolen from the rightful owner, from Hermann Schultz. We tried to buy it right. He refused, paid the price, just like you'll pay if you don't accept what I'm offering. Loretta felt Klaus move behind her. "No," she whispered without turning her head. "Not yet." But Klaus wasn't listening anymore. 6 years of silence, 6 years of fear, 6 years of guilt were exploding inside him like a broken dam. He stepped out from behind Loretta and stood visible in the doorway. Falk went white. The henchmen recoiled, spooked. One of them crossed himself. "Good Lord, it's the ghost. The German is alive." Falk recovered his composure fast, looked at Klaus with pure hate. "You thought you died with the others." Klaus took a step forward, voice coming out hoarse from a throat that had spent years without screaming. "You killed my family, burned them alive. My father, my mother, my brothers, children, and now you're going to pay." Falk gave a short laugh, devoid of humor. "Pay? To whom? You're officially dead. Don't exist, have no name, no rights, no nothing. Who's going to believe a ghost?" Klaus took a deep breath. "Attorney Elias Thorne will believe, and the Attorney General in Charleston too. They already have the proof, documents, letters, everything. In 2 days, the arrest warrants arrive. It's over for you." For the first time, Loretta saw real fear in Falk's eyes. Quickly, he masked it with rage. "What proof? There is no proof." Klaus smiled a bitter smile. "My father's notebook, with every threat noted, every visit of yours, every offer, all dated, signed, the letters you sent, the fake deed records, names of all the families you robbed, 15 properties. My father was gathering everything to report you. That's why you had him killed first. But I kept it for 6 years, waiting for the right moment. And the moment has arrived." Falk turned red, veins bulging in his neck. "You damn German! You should have died that night." He turned to the henchman. "Get him, and kill the woman too. Leave no witnesses." The men advanced. Loretta fired the shotgun into the air. The noise was deafening, even if the old gun only let out smoke and sparks. The men hesitated. "Next one touches here gets shot for real," screamed Loretta, reloading, a complete bluff, but voice firm. Klaus pushed Loretta inside and slammed the door in their faces, locked it with the wooden bar. Outside, Falk bellowed orders. "Break down this door. Burn this house. Kill everyone. Do whatever it takes, but end this now." Loretta ran to the bedroom. David and Clara were under the bed, shaking. "Stay there, don't come out." She ran back. Klaus was pushing the heavy table against the door. "Windows," he said. "Bar the windows." They worked fast, barred everything they could. But the house was old, destroyed by the ancient fire, full of holes. Wouldn't hold for long. Outside, axes started hitting the door. Wood cracked. Loretta looked at Klaus. He looked at her. "If we die here," he began. Loretta cut him off. "We aren't dying. Thorn is coming. We just need to hold." But deep down, she knew. Thorn wouldn't arrive in time. They were alone. The door gave way partially. An arm came through the opening, trying to unlatch it. Klaus slashed with the knife. A scream outside. The arm recoiled. More axes, more noise. Clara started crying in the bedroom. David tried to calm her. Loretta felt tears burning. Not like this. Couldn't end like this. Then they heard it. Shots, many shots, coming from the road. The axes stopped. Confused voices outside. Someone shouted, "It's the law! Got troopers!" Klaus ran to the window, looked through the crack, had hope and fear mixed on his face. "It's troopers all right. Uniformed, about 10. And there's a man in a suit with them. Looks like Thorn." Loretta felt her knees weaken. "Thank God, thank God." Outside, a strong voice cut the air. "Sebastian Falk, you are under arrest in the name of the law. Warrant for murder, forgery of public documents, property theft. Drop your weapons, all of you." Loretta heard the sound of weapons hitting the ground. Heard Falk trying to argue, voice losing its arrogance. "This is absurd. I am a respected man. I lead the syndicate." "You can't arrest me," the voice replied cold. "We can, and we will. I have an order from the federal judge. Resisting is an additional crime." Klaus unlatched the door, opened it slowly. Loretta went out with him. The yard was full of people. Troopers surrounded Falk and the henchmen. Elias Thorn was there, leather satchel under his arm, beside an older man in official uniform. Thorn saw Loretta and Klaus, waved. "Sorry for the delay. Managed to expedite the process. The federal judge signed the warrants last night. We came straight through. Did we arrive in time?" Loretta let out a laugh that was half sob. "You did. By a hair, but you did." Klaus was looking at Falk being handcuffed. The man who had destroyed his life, killed his family, was there, diminished, defeated. Falk looked at Klaus with hate. "This doesn't end here," he spat. "I have powerful friends. I'll be out in 2 days, and I'll end you." The official took a step forward. "Shut your mouth. Your powerful friends have been arrested too. The clerk, the sheriff, 3 judges. We got everyone. The scheme is over. Now, you guys need to go smash that like button and share this story with whoever you think will like it." In the following days, everything changed fast. Thorn took Klaus to Charleston to testify officially. The deposition lasted 2 days. Klaus told everything, every detail of the night of the fire, every name he remembered, every proof he had kept. The case exploded in the papers. The Charleston Gazette published a story on the front page. Timber syndicate busted. 15 families robbed. Murders revealed. Klaus Schultz, the ghost survivor. The story spread. Other victims started appearing. Polish, Ukrainian, German immigrants who had lost land and never got justice. The trial happened in May of 1922. Sebastian Falk was sentenced to 25 years in prison for murder, plus 15 for forgery and theft. The henchmen got 10 years each. The corrupt clerk lost his license and got 12 years. 2 judges were impeached and jailed. The sheriff fled to Mexico, but was captured months later. Klaus officially regained ownership of his father's property. The deed was restored in the name of the Schultz family. The other robbed families also began the process of recovery. Loretta and the children stayed at the farm during the whole process. Klaus returned from Charleston whenever he could. He was different, still carried the sadness of loss, always would, but the guilt was gone. The fear was gone. He had faced his demons and won, not with violence, but with truth, with the courage to speak, and with the help of good people like Loretta Thorne, the honest federal judge. One afternoon in June, Klaus returned from the final deposition and found Loretta on the porch mending clothes. He sat beside her. "It's over," he said. "Case closed. They're going away for a long time." Loretta nodded, continued sewing. "And now?" Klaus stayed quiet for a while, then spoke, voice low. "Now I need to rebuild. The house, life. But I don't want to do it alone. Not anymore." Loretta stopped sewing, looked at him. Klaus continued, "Spent 6 years alone. Learned that loneliness ain't life, it's just survival. And I don't want to just survive, I want to live for real." He turned to her. "With you, if you want. If you accept a broken German trying to pick up the pieces." Loretta felt tears fill her eyes. "You aren't broken. You're whole. More whole than a lot of folks who never went through what you went through. And yes, I accept." They married in August. Simple ceremony at the little church in Stony Creek. Reverend Miller officiated. Thorne was the best man. Abernathy and his wife were witnesses. David and Clara ran happily through the church aisle. It was a new beginning. For everyone. Klaus adopted the children officially. David Schultz. Clara Schultz. Family remade from broken pieces that fit together perfectly. They rebuilt the house where Klaus's family had died. It wasn't easy. Every plank placed brought a memory. But Klaus said it was important. Important to turn a place of death into a place of life. Important not to run. Important to remember, but move forward. Loretta worked beside him. Together they raised walls, fixed the roof, painted, planted. The farm came back to life. Garden grew. Chickens scratched. Klaus planted tobacco again, like his father used to. The first harvest was good, sold well. With the money he built a sign on the road. Schultz Farm. In memory of Hermann, Greta, Wilhelm, and Johann. May they rest in peace, knowing justice was done. Visitors started appearing, other immigrant families who had recovered lands, thanks to the case Klaus and Loretta had exposed. Came to thank, came to share stories, came to show they weren't alone. Attorney Elias Thorne continued defending immigrants. Became the most respected lawyer in the region, visited the farm twice a year, always brought books for David, dolls for Clara, always had dinner with the family, told stories, laughed, had become part of the extended family. Klaus and Loretta never forgot they owed their lives to him. 2 years after the trial, in January of 1924, Klaus and Loretta's first son was born. Strong boy, blonde hair, blue eyes like his father. They named him Hermann, in honor. Klaus held his son in his arms and wept. Loretta saw in those tears everything he had held back for years. Pain, loss, fear, guilt, and now, finally, hope. Life continued. Family continued. Love won. David grew up strong and studious. Klaus taught him to work the land, but also encouraged schooling. The boy had a knack for numbers. At 16, he got a scholarship to study in Charleston, came back on holidays, helped with the harvest, told of the wonders of the big city. Clara became a beautiful and determined young woman, opened a small school on the farm to teach the children of local settlers, was a good teacher, patient, dedicated. Klaus and Loretta were proud parents. Years passed. The farm prospered. Klaus never got rich, but had enough. Good land, plentiful harvest, united family, peace. It was more than many had. It was more than he had dared dream in those 6 years hidden in the dark cellar, thinking life was over. On a summer afternoon in 1930, Klaus was sitting on the porch he had built with his own hands. Loretta was beside him, grey hair in a bun, hands calloused from years of work, face still beautiful. They looked at the yard where 3 grandchildren played. Children of David who had married and returned to the region. The children laughed, ran, chased chickens. Klaus held Loretta's hand. "You saved my life," he said. She shook her head. "We saved each other." He smiled. "Yeah, I reckon so." Tobias, the neighbor who one day had brought Gus Layton with a purchase offer, stopped at the gate on his old horse, came to visit, as he did every week now. Friendship had grown after Klaus had saved his son from drowning in the river years ago. Tobias was ashamed of the role he had played on the day of the threat. Klaus had forgiven, Loretta too. Holding grudges made no sense when the future was so much more important than the past. Tobias got down, tied the horse, came up to the porch, brought a newspaper. Good news! Sebastian Falk died in prison, heart attack. Klaus received the news in silence, felt no joy, felt no sadness, only acceptance. The man had paid for what he did. Justice had been done. It was enough. Tobias continued, "And you know that new law they passed about protecting immigrant property was inspired by your case. It's in the papers. The Schultz case changed the law in West Virginia." Klaus blinked, surprised. Loretta squeezed his hand. Tobias opened the paper, read aloud. "Thanks to the courage of Klaus Schultz, survivor of the 1915 massacre, and widow Loretta Vance, who helped him expose a land theft scheme, the state of West Virginia approved legislation protecting properties of immigrant families and establishing severe punishment for deed forgery. The case, which shocked the country, is an example of how truth and justice can prevail even against the powerful. Klaus and Loretta turned tragedy into a legacy of hope for thousands of families." Klaus looked at Loretta. She smiled, eyes full of tears. "We did it," she whispered. "Not just for us, for everyone." He nodded, throat too tight to speak. The grandchildren ran to the porch, asking for attention. Klaus picked up the smallest, a 4-year-old boy named Johann, in honor of the lost brother. The child laughed, pulled his grandfather's beard. "Grandpa, tell a story." Klaus looked at the blue sky, at the prosperous farm, at the family around. "Tell about when you lived in the hideout," insisted the boy. Klaus took a deep breath. "One day I'll tell," he promised. "When you're bigger." It's a sad story, but with a happy ending, about how sometimes we need to go through the darkest dark to reach the light, Loretta added, and about how we must never give up, even when it seems impossible, even when everyone says to run. Sometimes staying and fighting is the only right choice. The sun began to set behind the ridge, painting the sky orange and pink. Klaus looked at the house he had rebuilt over the ashes, at the land he had recovered, at the family he had formed, at the life that had been reborn. The note he had nailed to the door years ago said to run. He had spent 6 years running. But when Loretta arrived, desperate and brave, she had chosen to stay. And that choice had changed everything. Tobias said goodbye, mounted up and left. The children went back to playing. Loretta went in to make supper. Klaus stayed a moment longer on the porch, looking at the land he had almost lost forever. Thought of his father, his mother, his brothers. Felt they would be proud, not because he had revenge, but because he had chosen truth, because he had found courage not to kill, but to live. Because he had turned pain into justice, fear into strength, loneliness into love. That night, after supper, after the children slept, Klaus picked up the accordion Loretta played at parties. He had learned a few tunes, played an old melody, a German song his mother sang when he was little. Loretta danced alone in the parlor, barefoot, smiling. When the music ended, she came to him, kissed his forehead. "Thank you," she said. For what? Asked Klaus. For not running that night when I found you, for trusting me, for staying. Loretta smiled. I didn't have a choice. You did, answered Klaus. There is always a choice, and you chose right. Years kept passing. Klaus died in 1952, at 79, surrounded by children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Loretta was holding his hand. He looked at her one last time. It was worth it, he whispered. Every second. She nodded, tears running down. It was. He closed his eyes in peace. Loretta lived 8 more years. Died in 1960, at 73, in the same house she had bought out of desperation and turned into a home. In her will, she left the farm to the grandchildren with a letter. In it told the complete story. Of the note, of the fear, of the choice to stay, of the fight for justice. And ended with a phrase that became the motto of the Schultz family. When life tells you to run, look closely to see if it isn't time to stay and fight. Because sometimes the scariest place holds the biggest blessing, and sometimes the most broken person has the strength you need to rise again. The Schultz farm exists to this day. The 5th generation of the family still grows tobacco on the land Hermann Schultz bought in 1898. At the entrance, besides the original sign, there is a new one. On it is written, "Here lived Klaus Schultz and Loretta Vance." She found a note telling her to run. He was hiding from the world. Together, they chose to stay. Together, they found justice. Together, they proved that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right despite it. And so ends the story of the abandoned farm, of the terrifying note, of the desperate widow and the invisible man. Story of how sometimes God puts the right people in the wrong places to make the right miracle happen. Story of how truth always wins, even if it takes 6 years hidden in a cellar. Story of how love is born in the most unlikely places, between the most broken people, and becomes the most powerful force in the world. And story of how a note saying "run" turned into the most important invitation. The invitation to stay, to fight, to win, together.